So we're wrapping up the Swiss here, and we thought we'd have a chat to an up and coming judge.
Am I still up and coming?
It feels that way, doesn't it? So Nick, we're in Liverpool, and we really haven't done anything much in Liverpool, for such a long time, PTQ-wise. I mean, how nice is it to sort of add a new venue to sort of this PTQ rotations?
It's always really nice to work with new people, particularly in places that either there's never been tournaments here or there hasn't been tournaments here for a while. And it's always nice to work with new TOs as well, because there's just so much to be discovered from people that run their own events and have different ideas about events. So yeah, it's really refreshing. It's good.
Now, have there been really any issues then with this PTQ so far, as either on the players' side or the organising?
I think generally it's gone really smoothly. We had a bit of a logistical issue at the beginning, but realistically I feel strongly there was not a lot any of us could have done to get rid of that. That was just a thing, happens sometimes with new venues and new TOs, so I'm really pleased with the staff, I'm really pleased with how everything went. I think after that initial hiccup, everything was quick, so can't ask for more than that really.
So you're not gonna stick around for the top 8 then?
I now might be. I mean,
it's tough.
I really want to, obviously, because part of the thing I love about these tournaments is actually seeing them progress and seeing there being a winner at the end. Logistical issues of me getting home and actually sleeping somewhere tonight might mean that I have to leave partway through the top 8, but I'm hopeful that that's not the case. I'm currently exploring alternate ways to get home.
Now, how hard is it for really, to get into the judging scene nowadays?
Nowadays, it's actually really easy. We've made one of the things we did last year with the judge program was we made level 1 more accessible than it has ever been before. There's a redefinition of the level 1 program, which I actually led in the later stages for the program as a whole, to just make level 1 more accessible to people who, and really to see it where it needs to be, which is in stores and in F&Ms and in little clubs and pubs, and where they really need judges and where they couldn't necessarily have judges before because of the amount of time that had to be committed to learning the rules and becoming knowledgeable about stuff. So the bar for level 1 has been lowered to the point where your local judge that judges, once a week, maybe even less than that, can now make level 1.
But one of the big sort of benefits is obviously the judge foils, and a new one got spoiled this week with sort of Imperial Recruiter. Now, there's sort of a big issue with what a lot of the traders talk about, because obviously if they release it as a sort of a Grand Prix foil, there's going to be millions of them, and people who've got currently $500, $600 set of regular Imperial Recruiters are going to see those prices crashing down. So is that going to do you think that would be just a world's foil? Something of that quality? Or do you think every judge in the country should have a chance or the opportunity at getting something like that?
That is a really difficult question for me to answer. I've never been a trader really. I've never truly got into the appreciation of how much things are worth.
I know how it was with you years ago. You used to get your judge foils and be like, I want to be shot of these on the same day.
Indeed, yeah. That's still partially the case for me. Obviously, if Wizards say we're going to release this cool new judge foil, and given that I have little or no knowledge of how much it's worth, the original's worth, I would like every judge to have a shot at one, because it's a cool thing that you get for judging. That's the idea of them.
But this is the equivalent of reprinting a MOX. The price of it, there's nothing close to it really that they've done in the past.
Is it really that bad? You're exposing my weak side here.
Well, a normal one at the moment is, you're looking at around $150, $200, and if you take the fact that it's a judge foil and therefore it's pretty and it's going to be rare, and you're looking at double the price of that, you're getting up towards maybe a sort of MOX.
I have to yield to people that know more about this than me, unfortunately. This is not a question I feel like I can answer very easily.
So
I'm very grateful that WotC give judges such wonderful gifts. Yeah. But I obviously feel bad for people that feel like their possessions are going down in value because of it. But I'm not that guy that can justify that. Unfortunately, not a trader. So
when someone gets into judging, do you think people now would ever get into judging because they want the judge foils, or is it simply still that people who get into judging do it purely because they like judging and they don't really care about getting anything out of it?
Well, it's an interesting thing. The reason people get into judging is often not at all telling of the type of judge they'll become. Do you know the reason why I got into judging?
I do remember. I do remember us sharing a room, actually, the very first tournament you ever judged.
Yeah, indeed. What did I tell you then? Do you remember?
That you were a bad player?
Yeah, it was pretty much that. I made 3 top 8s in PTQs. They weren't in a row. I think I missed one, but I made three top 8s and couldn't qualify, and I just got really annoyed with it. And
because you wanted to go to a pro tour?
Well, I just wanted to. I mean, I'm a competitive guy. I wanted to succeed. You know, I was striving to be good at something. So this, which is, to be honest, rather a childish kind of idea. I'm giving up at this. I'm going home, kind of thing, and I'm going to try a different game. Has led to me becoming at least a somewhat influential judge. And you know, I've written policy for the program. I like to think I've helped the whole program, particularly in the UK, in that we now have multiple level 3 judges, and we didn't have before. But
not only that, but I mean, I think I can honestly say you picked up a lot of personal life skills from judging as well.
Definitely. So you remember me when we shared that room, and around that time when I was just a terrible person. No, I don't think I was ever a terrible person.
I think it was more you were a bit indecisive and nervous because you weren't confident in your own decisions.
Yeah. Definitely. I mean, the program's taught me so much about who I am and how to deal with people, and just, yeah.
So that should be the reason people get into judging.
That's one of the reasons.
Because they self-fulfillment and betterment and self-improvement.
I mean, there's so many reasons. That's one of the reasons. I mean, another one of the reasons is that I have no friends like the friends I've met through judging. Like, it's a tremendous feeling to. I often say that, despite the fact that we travel all the way around the world and we go to all these Grand Prix and Pro Tours, or internationally, we're basically always going to the same room, which is without nation, without country. It's just a room where there's a Magic tournament, and we meet the same people in that room, and we work our butts off all weekend, like 14, 16 hours, however long it takes per day. And then at the end of the weekend, we go out, we maybe get drunk, we maybe sing karaoke, we maybe play Commander, and that's it. That weekend is like, it breeds camaraderie like you would not believe. Like, because you just strive with these people to make something excellent, and there's no feeling like that.
So, start of the season, the list of all the Pro Tours and the Grand Prix come out. Mm-hmm. Do you look at that list and go, I want to do that one, I want to do that one, I want to go to Honolulu, I want to go to Japan?
I certainly do that. I actually apply for, unless I know I can't make something, I apply for everything. And I strongly encourage other judges to do that as well. Like, unless you know coming up on a date that you can't make an event, and you will go if you get it, apply for everything.
Because this is one of the issues that a lot of level 1s, level 2s certainly had, in times gone by, is they went, oh, well, Wizards have their favourite judge and no one else will get at that break.
That is a really difficult thing to address, because, favourite judge looks very different from different perspectives, because sometimes it's the guy that's really worked for it, and you don't always see that when you're the new guy and you're looking up and going, why does that guy get to go everywhere? I know I certainly went through a period of being the favourite judge. Whether I was actually favourite or whether I worked for it, I leave for someone else to decide. But it does happen. I know I've been annoyed that other people got sponsorships that I wanted, and I know people have been annoyed that I got sponsorships. It's all about perspective, really.
I think maybe what annoyed a couple of judges was that, when you don't get sponsorship, you have to pay your own way there.
If you want to go, yeah. I mean, it's entirely acceptable. Again, the program won't frown on you if you just apply for things constantly, and you take the ones that you get sponsorship for. If you're taking the ones you get sponsorship for and you're not committing to the program, you're not giving stuff back, it might be that you get less. But really, the idea with the judge program is to give because you want to give. You give as much as you want to give. You don't give because they're giving you X amount of money. You don't give because that's what you think it's worth. You give what you want to give to the program, and it reciprocates in its own strange and mysterious ways, like in ways that you can't predict as well often. I got to go to Indianapolis many years ago because turns out that I was the only person in the country that took the Dreamblade judge exam, and therefore they needed somebody from this country to go, and
So talk briefly about your sort of career since being a judge, because obviously you've got into other aspects of Wizards of Code. In fact, if we look historically, you look at people like Paul Barkley. He got into Seattle, into the head offices through going through the judge programs, and you yourself, you'll be working Magic Online now.
No, not Magic Online. I mean, I've worked...
The Duels of the Planeswalkers.
Yeah, I've worked with Stainless Games for the last 3 years, and I'm still associated with them. I'm currently back at university, and they're sponsoring me through a doctorate in artificial intelligence. But I worked on Duels of the Planeswalkers for 3 years. Fantastic project. I was really glad to be part of it, and honestly, I've never had a better employer than Stainless Games. They're just completely amazing in all their wild craziness as well. If you need to see that, then YouTube Stainless Xmas Party, and you will not believe the carnage. But lovely people.
So back when you were really sort of starting out in the judging in Bradford, and you're still doing university at that point, were you? Because it was at the university campus you were running the tournaments.
When I started the tournaments, I was still at university there. When in the later years, I set up a society that basically perpetuated onwards with me as kind of a supporter, as a lot of TOs did at the time, that was kind of how we ran tournaments.
Did you know what you wanted to do in life after university at that point?
God, no idea. I just knew that I enjoyed what I was doing, basically.
So how did judging actually help you to get these jobs then? I mean, you suddenly realise, hey, I'm actually good at this.
I mean, that certainly happened. I suddenly realised that I was good at judging, and it was something that came to me, and it was a bit of a revelation when people started asking my advice for things the first time. But with respect to jobs, I think it's a bit bizarre, really, but I definitely feel like I got jobs that were nothing to do with Magic, purely because I had this item on my CV at the back that sounded really, really cool. And I don't think I went through a single job interview without discussing it. I think pretty much at some points, every job interview I went to brought it up, and then we talked about it, and they thought it was kind of cool and interesting, and then it was something that we ended up talking about in the interview for a long time because they were interested about it. So it's kind of an extracurricular that you want on your CV, because you can present it as something that's like, I am experienced in travel, international relations. I trained with teamwork and leading people and management. There's all these skills that come alongside judging, particularly high-level judging, that apply to every job. They're just bonuses in these jobs, and having proof of it is awesome.
Now, obviously, the big one is actually getting to judge at the Worlds, and English guys very often are at a disadvantage because they don't speak a second language.
It's interesting because that is a disadvantage, but it's also an advantage in some ways, because having English as your first language means that you kind of given that it's such a strong language for you, you end up being the most able to communicate with most people. Like, there may be people who, for example, if two judges are at Worlds and their mutual language is English, it's the only mutual language they have, and their native languages are different, their communication would be very broken, because possibly if their English isn't good. Whereas you have the unique kind of pass all ports card that is spoken English as a first language. So it's a disadvantage in that occasionally you come across conversations and you go like, I really wish I knew what was going on here. Or you hear some players talking and you're like, I think something bad's happening, but I'm not really sure. But it can be an advantage, definitely. You can communicate with every judge, basically, which is definitely important for leading and managing.
So let's briefly look at a couple of rules. One of the things I always found is how easy players can miscommunicate what they're planning. For example, let's think of playing a pithing needle is a good example of this. For example, I was in a tournament in Lille years and years ago where I was playing against a French guy who didn't quite speak English, and he had like a pernicious deed out.
Sure.
So I go to play a pithing needle, and I ask him if it's okay, and he says it's okay, and that's when I call the judge, because I want to name pernicious deed,
Sure.
and I don't want the player to be able to take back the fact that he said it was okay to play it. And we had the same thing here happening today with a pithing needle naming a Khan, and then the other guy trying to do something with Khan in response. So how important is it really from this point of view for players to be clear about what they actually want to do, and maybe sometimes to actually call the judge a lot of people like to sort things out by themselves rather than calling a judge out, you know?
I mean, we try, and we have tried for a long time, to always err on the side of the person that communicated the most clearly. Oh, it's funny that I can't say that properly. How ironic. I personally as well have put a lot of time into communication for the programme. There was a communication policy, and a few years ago I completely redrafted and basically wrote it anew to allow for kind of a framework for the communication that I felt we wanted in the game. And this has been adopted into official policy now. This is the communication policy as it stands. But if there's a situation that I'm coming to investigate, and if there's a guy that was clear about his intent and he communicated well, then I want to go with that guy's side, because he's the guy that was saying, like, I want to do this, here's what I'm doing, and he's explaining to his opponent, he's being clear. So, and really the comm policy is built around, if you were clearer about what you're doing, we are more likely to protect you, you know? There are a lot of questions you can ask, and there's a lot of things you can say by talking about what's going on more verbosely that protect you in these situations. So that's really what we want players to do.
Obviously, the one big thing that came up from all of this sort of rolling back to an earlier game state is it allows people to game the system in that way, that they can make a play mistake, then claim that was never their intention and roll back and play more optimally. It's like, are there any sort of thoughts about changing the wording on that to make it sort of to prevent people having this sort of ability to cheat in that way? Or is there just nothing you can do about it?
Well, I mean, partially that. You'll be aware that the rollback has come and gone over time throughout the policy's evolution, and it's a very difficult thing, because we want, when you're looking at it from a perspective of somebody that's developing policy, you want to give as much power to the judge as possible to make that situation that they're dealing with right. But at the same time, you want everybody to be treated the same, and giving power to individual judges that's the opposite of that. You allow deviation by giving more power. So it's basically a balancing act. I mean, we're as judges, we're always sensitive to abuses, and we want to detract from that.
The players want consistency, whereas the judges want what's right.
I think we want consistency as well, but I mean, what we would ideally like is consistent, effectively justice for everyone, you know? If we can work out a policy that's like, hey, this policy is always fair, and we can just do the same every time, we love that. That's perfect, you know? That is the ideal policy. But those are almost impossible to capture, because Magic's such a complex game. So, but that's what we're going for. That's the holy grail of policy, basically. You can find a few sentences that say, here's how you should fix that situation, and it always works. I'm exaggerating a bit, obviously, but 99% of the time it works. Then that's the good stuff.
So finally, obviously this is the Scythe and Tea Cup. It's been operating for about 1 year, 1 month now. Yep. This is their first ever PTQ. Is it going to be their last?
I would be very surprised if that was the case. Very surprised. I mean, this has gone really well here, particularly from the perspective of the venue and the TO and because all the local staff as well. The staff here.
You don't really get PTQs running shops anymore. I mean, what shops certainly in the UK are capable of holding 150 people?
I mean, that is purely a venue concern. Like, that's more like the shops we want to run the PTQs don't have enough money or to regularly uphold a venue like this. I mean, this is a big venue. There's good space, good seating. If more shops had venues like this, they would have the PTQs. I'm confident of that. So, but no, I would be willing to say that I can't guarantee it, but I would be very surprised if there wasn't another PTQ here. Really. So
far as TOs are concerned, like, what is the feedback that you would give to Wizards of the Coast concerning how a PTQ was run?
We report on quite a lot of stuff about the venue, particularly, and the venue, the staff, and access to facilities and stuff like that generally goes back to WotC in terms of how the PTQ was run.
And how do players provide feedback as well? Is there any option for that?
They can obviously speak to me or speak to the head judge of their PTQ. They can also contact the regional coordinator for the UK, who's Kim Warren, which you can either look on our forums, which is magicjudges.co.uk. I believe there's public contact info there. or you can contact the UK office directly. I don't have their email off the top of my head though, so you may have to. Would
they actually listen? Because that's an important aspect of it.
They would read the email. Yeah. I can guarantee that. Yeah. I'm not going to say that as soon as they read your email they're going to leap into action and then stuff will change, but it will be listened to. Yeah.
So, let's say we've got several really good venues in the northwest of England and lots of lousy venues in the south and the east, but you can't have all the PTQs in the northwest. So how do you decide where the PTQs are sort of allocated around the country in that respect?
I am very fortunate in that I've never had to decide that. The staff at the UK office didn't make all decisions like that about where the PTQs are actually going to be. I know they make efforts to spread them out evenly, whether it be like in a given season they are spread out evenly, or this season's going to be favoured the north and this season's going to be favoured the south. But that's
So if the best two venues were both sort of next door to each other in the northwest of England and you wanted to reward them both, would it be possible to give them both a PTQ, or it'd just be like you're too close together?
I would be very surprised if, like, for example, if like this city, for example, if Liverpool had two venues in it that were both capable of running PTQs, I would be really surprised if there were two PTQs here the same season. I don't see that happening. It's certainly possible in neighbouring cities. I know they like to spread them out on a given season.
So let's say Fanboy in Manchester. So you could have one in Manchester and Liverpool, maybe? Or is it still a bit too close?
I mean, like I said, I'm not the authority on this, but I would be surprised if there was one in Manchester and Liverpool in the same season. There might be. It's not out of the question, but I'd be surprised. I think ideally anyway, they want to spread them out as much as possible, but they're balancing this with who do we give them to last season, who do we particularly want to reward, who's new and we want to try out. You know, there's all these other factors.
Promoting the game the best.
Exactly, yeah. Who's doing the best job at the moment, yeah. So who do we want to reward for their activity? And there's also certain what we just say, what we'd say in computer science, exploration versus exploitation. You want to find new places as well that might be better than places you've ever tried before. You know, so then you might want to try a new TO every season or something. So,
okay, well, thanks for your time and.